I came in from a job just after dark, boots still carrying dust from a half-finished site on the east side of town. The porch light was on like always. Not bright, not dramatic, just a soft glow that said the house had been waiting for me. Hannah met me at the door with that gentle smile she'd had since the first month we moved in together. It wasn't polished or practiced. It was a quiet kind of welcome, the kind you don't notice until you've lived without it. The living room lights were low, warm enough to soften the edges of the day. Somewhere in the background, a saxophone wandered through a slow jazz track, low enough that I could still hear the dishwasher doing its steady work in the kitchen. She took my bag before I even had to set it down, hung my jacket on the hook by the door, kissed me on the cheek like it was a habit she'd never get tired of. Then she slid a plate across the counter like she was handing something sacred over. "Sit," she said. "You look worn out." "I'm fine," I told her. She raised a brow and gave me that look that said she didn't buy it. "This is nicer than fine," she said, and tapped the chair with her fingertips. The food smelled like rosemary and garlic, and something sweet underneath, maybe the onions caramelizing in the pan. She'd always had a way of knowing what kind of day I'd had before I explained it. If I came home quiet, she gave me something warm. If I was wound tight, she gave me something simple and familiar. We ate at the counter because we did most nights. Our dining table was for holidays, birthdays, or when her friends came by and insisted on real chairs. Outside of that, the kitchen was where life happened. She asked about the job site, not in a forced way, in a way that meant she had actually been thinking about it during the day. "How'd it go with the framing?" she asked. "It went," I said. "Leo still can't read a tape measure without squinting like it's trying to insult him." She laughed. "You're going to train him into shape eventually, or I'll lose my mind first." "What about the window in your truck?" "Still leaking." "Still leaking. I got caulk in the back, just haven't had 10 minutes to deal with it." "Then you're dealing with it this weekend," she said, calm as a weather report. "I'm not letting my husband drive around in a rain bucket." I smiled without meaning to. She knew my rhythms as well as I did. She knew when I delay something, when I needed a push, when I needed someone to act like the decision had already been made so I wouldn't overthink it. After dinner, she moved around the kitchen, rinsing plates and stacking them like she had all the time in the world. I watched her for a second longer than I usually did. There was a steadiness in her, a way she stayed inside her own calm tonight. Sometimes I think calm is the most underrated kind of strength. We ended up on the couch after. She tucked her feet under my leg, always the same spot. Her toes were cold. I pretended to complain. She pretended to be offended. That was our little routine. She scrolled through movie options with the remote in one hand and her phone in the other. The way she hunted for a film was a kind of slow dance. A little indecision, a little teasing, a few quiet sighs. "You pick," she said. "Dangerous responsibility," I said, and leaned my head back like I was preparing for a hard shift. She grinned. "You're brave." "Not brave, just tired." We settled on something neither of us fully cared about, which was also part of the point. We didn't choose movies to be dazzled. We chose them so we could sit close, share a blanket, and let the day fade out without talking it to death. It was home, the kind of quiet most men would trade a year of their life for without thinking twice. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have soaked in that silence like it was the last warm day of a good season. But at the time, I didn't know anything was crossing a line. I wasn't scanning for cracks. I wasn't bracing. I was just living in what I thought was the shape of our life. The next morning, I woke up early out of habit. My body has a job, even on days off. It drags me upright before I can negotiate. Hannah was still asleep. She slept curled toward the middle of the bed, hair spilling over the pillow like it had its own map. I made coffee quietly. Another habit. When I worked long shifts, she'd have a mug waiting for me. When I had a slower morning, I returned the favor. It wasn't a scorecard. It was just us. I took my coffee to the shop around the corner, the one I'd been going to for years. Same barista, same corner table by the window, same black coffee with nothing in it. Most mornings, the place was full of people who didn't look up. Laptops, earbuds, quiet ambition. I liked the anonymity of it. I sat in the corner, opened my email, and started scanning through the day's schedule. Half the time, I did it out of necessity. The other half I did it because it slowed my thoughts down. I was halfway through an invoice when my phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. Don't forget lunch. I made extra. I smiled. She always said that like she was reminding me to breathe. She didn't mean it the way some people mean reminders. Not anxious, not controlling, just caring in a way that made daily life feel practiced and safe. I typed back a quick thanks and tucked the phone away. That's when I noticed my reflection in the window. A guy in work boots, thick hands, a face that looked older than it felt, shoulders a little tight. I didn't look unhappy. I looked like a man carrying the weight he expected to carry. Construction teaches you discipline without using the word. You show up. You measure twice. You secure the beam. You don't stand under anything you haven't checked. Life feels simple when you treat it like that. Hannah used to say she liked me because I was steady. I think she meant I didn't drift. I didn't chase chaos, didn't shake the house for sport. I liked order. I liked routines that worked. I liked little rituals that meant something because they were repeated, not because they were announced. We've been married 7 years. Not a flashy number. Not fresh, not old. 7 years of building a life that felt reliable. A mortgage we could handle. A truck I maintained. A dog that thought she owned the sofa. Friend we saw on weekends. Plans that stayed mostly on track. There wasn't a headline in any of it. There wasn't supposed to be. The thing about calm is that it makes you believe in itself. If nothing shakes for long enough, you start thinking the ground is solid because it's kind, not because you checked it. That morning I didn't check anything. I didn't need to. I sat in the coffee shop and watched the day begin. People walking past with coats and purpose, the street waking up in small bursts, the barista shouting names like a town crier. I took another drink, warm and bitter, and let myself be in the quiet. If you'd asked me right then what I thought my life looked like, I would have said simple. Earned. Good. I would have meant it. And I would have been wrong in a way I couldn't imagine yet. The next morning looked ordinary from the outside. Same dawn light, same stiff joints from yesterday's work, same quiet kitchen. Hannah was still asleep when I got up. I moved through the house softly, not because I had to, but because that's how mornings work for us. Coffee first, then the shop. The coffee place sat 2 blocks off the main road. It wasn't trendy or loud. It had good black coffee, clean tables, and a corner seat by the window that felt like mine, even though I'd never said so out loud. The barista knew my order. I nodded, she nodded back. I carried the cup to my table, opened my phone, and started going through emails. There was comfort in repetition. Comfort in a world that didn't demand emotional decisions before 8 a.m. I was reading an invoice when someone set a cup down across from me. Not a question, not a pause. Just the sound of ceramic meeting wood. I looked up expecting a mistake. The woman sitting there wasn't someone I recognized. Early 30s, clean cut, hair pulled back tight, eyes precise in a way that made you think she didn't waste words. She didn't smile, didn't offer her name, didn't say hello. Your wife is meeting my husband, she said. I blinked once. There are sentences that take time to register because they don't match the world you're standing in. That was one of them. My brain tried to file it under wrong table, wrong person, odd joke, anything else that fit the shape of normal. I'm sorry, I said because that's all I had. She didn't flinch. She didn't look uncertain. Your wife, she repeated, slower this time, is meeting my husband. During the day, while you're at work, the air in my chest shifted. I felt my posture change before I chose it. I sat up straight, hands braced on the table like I was about to stand. That's a big thing to say to someone you don't know, I said. I know. Her voice stayed level. That's why I'm saying it plainly. There's no softer way to put it. She slid her phone across the table. The screen was already lit. Look, I didn't want to. My body reacted before my mind did. Dry mouth, cold fingertips, that slow tightening behind the ribs like something was being cinched shut. But I picked it up. The photo on her phone was my front porch. I knew that porch the way you know your own wrist. By feel, by memory, by habit. The scuff on the second step. The chipped paint on the railing. I kept promising myself I'd touch up. The planter box Hannah liked, even though it leaned a little. A man was walking up those steps. Not me. Tall, neat-looking, no package in hand, no work clothes, no hesitation. Just a relaxed stride like he'd done it before. Like he belonged there, in the middle of a weekday at my door. I swiped to the next photo. Same man, different day. Same porch. Another timestamp. Weekday. Noon. Another swipe. He was inside my living room. The angle was half hidden, shot through something, the way people take pictures when they don't want to be seen. Behind him, I could see the blue throw blanket on the couch, the one Hannah loved and folded like a ritual. My throat went tight. I zoomed in. I don't know why. Maybe a part of my brain still believed there would be some clue that made this make sense in a harmless way. There wasn't. Every photo was clear enough to argue with my denial. The timestamps were lined up like nails. Weekdays, noon to 2, a repeating slot that matched my work hours too perfectly to be random. I set the phone down. Not gently. "What is this?" I asked. She studied me like she had already prepared for every reaction I might have. "My name is Rachel Stone," she said. "That's my husband in those photos. His name is Gavin." I shook my head without realizing it. "You're telling me he's coming to my house?" "I'm telling you he's meeting your wife," she answered. "At your house. During the day." I stared at her. I didn't hear the espresso machine anymore. I didn't hear the chatter behind us. Everything narrowed to the edge of that table and her calm face. People say they want the truth. What they mean is they want a truth they can hold without bleeding. This wasn't that kind. "How do you know?" I said. "Ow, I hired someone." Her voice didn't harden, didn't soften. It just stayed firm. "A private investigator. The report came in last week." The words hit like cold water. She kept going, like she knew I'd need the timeline instead of the emotion. I sat with it for a few days. She glanced at her cup and then back at me. Not because I was unsure, because my lawyer told me to keep quiet. If I was going to file, I needed clear documentation. I didn't want to tip anyone off. I wanted to say something smart, something skeptical, something that would restore order to the world. Instead, I said, "Why are you telling me?" Rachel's jaw twitched once, almost invisible. "Because I watch you come in here every morning," she said. "Same seat, same coffee, acting like everything was fine. And it stopped feeling right to let you live in it." I didn't know what to do with that. Gratitude and rage don't sit well together. My mind went to Hannah, her sleepy face on the pillow, her text about lunch, her voice the night before asking me about the job site. And right behind that image was another one I'd never seen before. Her opening the front door for a man I didn't know, letting him walk in as if the house were a shared stage. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "I'm going home," I said. Rachel's hand reached out and pressed on my forearm. Not gentle, not intimate, just stopping me like a barrier you put up before a fall. "Don't," she said. I looked at her like she'd insulted me. "Not yet." Her voice lowered. "If you rush in like a storm, you'll get a storm back. You'll lose control of what happens next." "What control?" I snapped. "You just showed me my life isn't what I thought it was." "I know." She didn't move her hand. "That's why you don't go in blind. You don't want a scene that makes you feel worse and gives them time to build a story around you." I wanted to argue. I wanted to shake her hand off. I wanted to be anywhere else except trapped in my own skin. But she was right in a way I could feel. I hate wreckage. Not because I'm afraid of emotion. Because I've spent my life cleaning messes other people made when they didn't think 2 steps ahead. Broken frames, blown budgets, jobs that collapse because someone couldn't wait to do it right. I took a breath and sat back down. Rachel's shoulders dropped a fraction. "How long?" I asked. "I don't know." She paused. I suspected something. Little things. A travel schedule that didn't add up. Phone calls that went quiet when I walked into a room. I hired the investigator because I needed proof before I made any moves. She looked at me directly. "I'm filing. My lawyer is solid. If you want his number, I'll give it to you. But I'm not going to push you into anything today." The way she said it, clean, not dramatic, made me believe her more than the photos already had. She wasn't here to perform pain. She was here to survive it. I rubbed my palm against my thigh under the table, steadying myself. "My name is Daniel Mercer," I said finally. Saying it out loud felt like reminding myself I was still a real person. She nodded once. "Rachel." We swapped numbers. No speeches. No promises. It wasn't friendship. It was 2 people acknowledging they'd been pulled into the same fire. Then she stood up, tucked her phone away, and said, "Don't say anything to her yet. Not a hint. Start watching the details. Keep your face normal. You'll know when you're ready to move." I opened my mouth to ask a dozen questions at once. She didn't wait for them. She walked to the door and left like she'd done what she came to do. The bell above the entrance rang softly behind her. The shop returned to its normal sounds. People typed. Someone laughed. The world refused to react to what I'd just been handed. I sat there staring at my cup. My coffee had cooled. I didn't remember taking a single sip after she arrived. On the drive to the site, I replayed those photos like my brain was trying to wear a groove into them. The porch, the living room, the blanket, the timestamps. At work I was late and useless. I held a tape measure and didn't trust my own eyes. Every time someone asked me a question, I heard it through a fog. By lunchtime, I had done a full week of thinking in 3 hours. My mind kept trying to jump to the ending. Confrontation, shouting, the kind of scene that makes neighbors stare through blinds. But another part of me kept pulling the wheel back. Hannah was sharp. She noticed the smallest shift in tone. If I walked in carrying suspicion, she would hear it before the door latched. And once she heard it, she'd adjust. She'd talk. She'd smooth. She'd create distance between me and whatever was true. When you build for a living, you learn something early. The first mistake isn't what brings a structure down. It's the second one, the one you make because you were angry about the first. So on the drive home, I made myself do the hard thing. I stopped rehearsing explosions. Not because I wasn't furious, because I needed to see clearly before I did anything that couldn't be undone. I pulled into my driveway as the sun went low, my chest feeling like it was holding a weight I hadn't trained for. Hannah opened the door with that same soft smile, took my jacket, asked about my day like she always did. And I answered her like nothing had changed, while inside me, everything had. That night, I lay beside Hannah and listened to the house like it was a sight I didn't recognize. The refrigerator clicked. The pipes made their small, settling noises. Her breathing was slow and steady, her shoulder warm against mine. I kept my eyes shut because opening them felt like stepping into a place that had already changed shape. I slept in scraps, not enough to heal anything, but enough to stand up the next morning without falling over. Hannah moved through the kitchen in her usual rhythm, barefoot, hair up, humming low while she poured coffee. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted eggs. Just coffee, I said. You've got that look, she teased. Rough day ahead. Routine, I answered and made my voice plain. She smiled like she believed me, or like she wanted to. On her way out, she paused in the doorway with her bag on her shoulder. Yoga's shifting times this week, she said casually. Instructor changed the schedule. Late morning still? I asked. Yeah, just a little different, she said, then waved and left with a quick love you. The door shut. The quiet after it felt too wide. At work I kept my hands busy so my mind wouldn't sprint. I checked levels, stacked lumber, walked the crew through a punch list. I even made a joke about Leo's tape measure blindness. Everyone laughed. I nodded along like a man who was still living in the same story. Inside, I was waiting for noon. At 11:30, I drove past our street. I didn't turn in. I just rolled by with my eyes moving, driveway, porch, windows. Our driveway was empty. No relief came with that. Empty only means empty today. The photos Rachel showed me had empty driveways too. At lunch, I parked around the corner from my own house and watched for 5 minutes. I sat low in the seat, hand still on the wheel, heart steady but hard. Nothing happened. No unfamiliar car. No man on my steps. The neighborhood stayed normal in the way neighborhoods always do when they're hiding something. I left. The next day, I did it again. Same 5 minutes. Same empty view. Same tension in my jaw. On the third day, I parked 2 houses down instead of around the corner. From there, I could see our porch clearly, the line of steps, the front door I'd repainted last spring. I told myself I'd stay calm if someone showed. I told myself I'd watch first and move later. No one showed. What did show up was a different kind of fact, the quiet reminder that catching nothing today doesn't erase what happened on the days I didn't watch. That evening, Hannah had music on and dinner halfway done when I walked in. She turned with a warm smile, sleeves rolled, wooden spoon in hand. She looked like herself, like our life. Hey, she said. Long day. Busy, I told her. We ate at the counter. She asked about the site, the crew, my truck window still leaking. All the correct questions, timed the way she always timed them. If she was lying, She was doing it inside a version of herself I didn't know existed. Halfway through dinner, I said, I'm moving my gym to mornings this week. She didn't react big. She just paused a hair too long before speaking. Oh, she said lightly. Why? Trying to open lunch up, I said. Might come home sometimes, grab a sandwich, take care of a few errands. That's sweet, she said fast. I'll make something special. The answer was fine. The speed of it wasn't. After dinner, we sat on the couch. She tucked her feet under my leg, found a show, laughed at the right places. The room looked like our room, but the rhythm felt slightly off, like a song playing the right key, but missing a beat. The next morning, I went to the coffee shop earlier than usual. Rachel was already there. She looked up the moment I walked in, like she'd been waiting but didn't want to admit it. You holding up? She asked. I'm holding, I said. Not calm, just holding. She nodded. Good. Don't move on impulse. I'm not, I said. I'm changing small things. Watching what shifts. That's the right move, she said. No warnings. How long have you been married? I asked her. 8 years. He travels for consulting, she said, then her mouth tightened. Or he told me he did. Turns out he travels to your neighborhood. I let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. I build houses, I muttered. We measure twice. Don't make this about what you missed, she said. This is about what they chose. She slid a folded paper across the table. A checklist from her lawyer. Separate accounts, copy documents, note dates, stay quiet. Not revenge. Logistics. Start here, she said. You need a plan before you need a fight. I folded it into my wallet. On the way to work, I stopped at my bank and opened a new account in my name only. I didn't touch the joint account except to keep bills covered. I just redirected my pay and cut off extras without saying a word. At the site, Luis watched me longer than normal. You're pacing, he said. Thinking, I replied. You only pace when something's wrong. Just shifting routines, I said. He didn't buy it, but he didn't press. That was Luis. He trusted me to tell him when it mattered. At noon, I drove past my house again. Same empty driveway. Same quiet street. That afternoon, I came home early without telling Hannah. Not wildly early, just half an hour. I wanted to see what surprise did to her face. She was at the stove when I walked in, music on, hair tied up. She turned fast, surprise real. You're early, she said. Wrapped up sooner. I answered, kissed her cheek, opened the fridge like I was checking groceries. What for lunch tomorrow? I asked. She hesitated. A small hitch, like a foot catching on a stair. I could bring you something, she said. I'll swing by, I told her. No need to drive. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Text me first so I can time it, she said lightly. You know I like planning. I know, I said. I'm trying to be a little more flexible this week. She laughed. The sound was right, but her eyes stayed alert a second too long. We ate. We watched a show. We went to bed. The house still looked like the house I'd trusted. Hannah still looked like the woman I'd married. But underneath all of it, I could feel something rearranging itself in the dark. And I knew I was going to keep pulling at the thread until the pattern showed its real shape. By the time a week passed, I could tell the difference between a normal day and a day that was being managed. Normal days have sloppy edges. Managed days have smooth ones. Hannah's days were getting smoother. She started asking more questions than usual. Not hard questions. Small ones. What time I'd be back? Whether I was grabbing lunch out. If Luis was still on site with me. She kept her tone light, but the questions came in clusters, like she was checking for something without naming it. I answered in broad strokes. Same window as always. Site is busy. Nothing special. She listened closely. I could feel it, the way you feel someone behind you even if you don't turn around. One night she asked, What's tomorrow look like? Morning on the West Project, I said. Afternoon tied up. I'll be home for dinner. That's it, she said, trying to smile. That's it. She laughed softly. We're a team, Dan. We share things. We share big things, I told her. You don't need my bathroom schedule. She laughed again because the line was funny. Humor makes fences easier to accept. She let it go, but I saw her file it away anyway. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't even trying to punish her. I was tightening the frame. When you suspect a structure is failing, you stop adding weight. You stop giving out the blueprint. The next morning, Rachel slid into her usual seat at the coffee shop like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. She looked tired. Not messy tired, controlled tired. The kind that comes from keeping your face steady while your life runs hot underneath it. She pushed a folder across the table. My attorney, she said. His name is Owen Blake. He's clean. No posturing. No theatrics. I opened the folder. A business card was clipped inside, along with a short list of steps. It didn't read like revenge. It read like a plan. Protect finances, document everything. Move quietly until papers are ready. Call him, she said. I will, I said. Then, without thinking, I want more than a call. Rachel lifted an eyebrow. You ready to move? I'm ready to hear exactly how to move. She nodded once, approving. Walk in. This gets worse before it gets better. You know that, right? You sound like a doctor telling me a splinter needs to come out. I'm telling you an infection doesn't go away because you keep pretending it's not there, she said. I didn't argue. I booked a meeting with Owen that afternoon. His office was small in a quiet building downtown. Not fancy, not trying to impress anyone. The kind of place where the work matters more than the decor. He was in his late 40s, gray at the temples, voice calm in a way I respected immediately. He listened without interrupting while I laid it out. The photos, the midday windows, the jacket I hadn't shown anyone yet, the way Hannah's answers were starting to sound preloaded. When I finished, he didn't say a lot. He didn't need to. You want a quiet exit, he said. Minimal noise. No public war. Correct. Correct. Then you control two things, he said, and held up two fingers. Money and information. That's it. Don't announce anything. Don't threaten anything. Document. Keep routines normal enough to avoid tipping her off. When you're ready, we file and serve. Normal enough, I repeated. He slid a checklist across the desk. It was basically Rachel's list, just tailored to me. Copies of titles and statements. Separate accounts. Watch credit. Move valuables. Keep a log. All practical. All clean. I don't like checklists unless they're mine, I said. He half smiled. Then make this one yours. I left with the folder under my arm and a heaviness in my chest that was getting familiar. The drive back to the site felt like I was carrying a blueprint for a house I no longer wanted to live in. That night, I cooked. Hannah walked in from wherever she'd been, stopped in the doorway, and looked at the stove like it had started speaking. You never cook on Thursdays, she said. I can learn, I answered. She stepped closer, tasted the sauce with a spoon, nodded. It's good. High praise, I said. She leaned against the counter, arms folded loosely. I'm sorry if I've been, she started. If you've been what? I asked. I don't know. She shrugged. On edge. Short. I feel like you've been far away lately. Have I? I said. I feel it, she murmured and laid her hand on my chest. The gesture was soft, familiar, almost tender. Under other circumstances, it would have dissolved me. It was the kind of moment that usually reset a marriage back to zero. This time I watched it like a thing happening in front of me, not inside me. Maybe work's just heavy, I said. I want us to be good, she said quietly. There was one of those gentle turns she was good at. A small bridge laid out in a warm kitchen. A promise without a question. I nodded like I didn't know what it was. We're good, I said. She smiled, relieved too fast, and went back to setting plates. I didn't call her out. I didn't need to. The move told me what it was, a tactic to pull me back into the rhythm before I drifted too far. I stayed polite. I stayed functional. I logged it in my head the way I logged measurements on a site. The next morning, Rachel was already in the shop, tapping her cup lightly with her thumb. When I sat down, she read my face and said, You met Owen? Yeah, and he says the same thing you do. Quiet moves. Tight plan. Good. She paused. You sleeping? Enough to stand up. That means no, she said, but there was a faint smile there. We didn't talk about Hannah or Gavin that morning. Not right away. We talked about the normal things people talk about when they're trying to remember what normal feels like. Rachel told me she worked in HR for a logistics company, that she learned early how to read the space between words because that's where people hide the truth. She had a dry sense of humor, the kind that doesn't sparkle loudly but hits you later and makes you grin despite yourself. I told her about being 12 and helping my uncle frame a garage and realizing I liked the smell of sawdust more than I liked sitting still in classrooms. I told her about the first truck I ever bought with my own money and how I loved it even when it broke down on me every month. She teased me about the label maker I used for tools. I teased her about color coding her pantry. It was ordinary conversation, and it felt like stepping into clean air after being stuck in a room that was slowly filling with smoke. At some point, she got quiet, then said, "Forget your wife for a second." I raised my eyes. She continued, steady but softer. "You're better than this story. You're clear. You're not flailing. I can see it." I didn't know what to say. Praise wasn't what I was looking for, but it landed anyway because it was true in a way I needed to hear. Rachel took a breath. "We've been meeting like this every morning. 10 minutes of planning and pain. I don't want my life to be only that. Neither should yours." She looked at me without pressure, just honesty. "Let's do an actual date," she said. "No war briefings. One night to remember we're human." The word date hung between us longer than it should have. In a different week, in a different world, I would have stepped back. I would have said no. I would have told myself I needed time or principles or some clean separation. But the truth is, principles don't mean much if you only use them to protect someone else's comfort. "Tonight," I said before I could edit myself. Rachel blinked once, then nodded like she'd already braced for either answer. "Okay," she said. "Tonight." We picked a restaurant neither of us ever went to in our old lives. A quiet steak place on a side street where no one knew our routines. We kept it simple: food, a couple drinks, nothing that looked like a performance. We didn't talk about Hannah. We didn't talk about Gavin. We talked about road trips we'd loved, the worst purchases we'd ever made, the habits we wanted to break, and the habits we hoped never left us. Rachel laughed more than I expected her to. Not loud, real. Her eyes softened when she did it, like the tension in her face finally found a place to loosen. When the night ended, I walked her to her car. We stood there a second under the streetlight, both of us quiet, feeling the weight of the line we were standing on. "That felt like normal," she said softly. "Not perfect," I said. "Better." She looked at me carefully. "I don't want to make you feel like you're becoming what hurt you." I shook my head. "I'm not becoming anything. I'm just done being alone in someone else's choices." She let that sit. Then she stepped closer and rested her hand on my arm. "Kiss me if you want," she said. "Don't if it makes you feel worse." I didn't feel worse. I felt awake. So I kissed her, slow, steady, nothing rushed, nothing hidden. No fireworks. Just two people finding a clean line in a messy week. When she got in her car and drove off, I stood there another moment, staring at the tail lights until they disappeared. On the drive home, the quiet in my truck didn't feel empty. It felt settled, like something inside me had stopped fighting itself. I pulled into my driveway near midnight. The porch light was on. Hannah was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "You didn't text," she said. I didn't feel like texting. I answered. "You always text." "Not anymore," I said calm. Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to change rules on your own." "I do," I said. "When the rules stopped being mutual." Her eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" "It means I know more than you think," I said, "and I'm acting accordingly." She stared at me hard. Then her tone shifted quickly into something softer, almost sweet. "I made you that pasta you like," she said. I looked at her for a second, longer than usual. "I ate already," I said. Then I walked past her toward the guest room, leaving her standing in a kitchen that suddenly didn't feel like hers to control. After that night, the house didn't change on the surface. It still smelled like dinner by 6. The dog still claimed the same corner of the couch. Hannah still asked if I wanted coffee in the morning. But the air between us had a new density, like someone had shut a window, and neither of us said why. She tested me in small ways. Little comments. A laugh that came a second too late. A question with a casual tone and a sharp edge. "You've been different," she said one morning while rinsing a plate. "Like you're somewhere else." "Busy week," I answered. "With what?" "Work. Life." I kept my voice neutral. She studied me like she was trying to read a label that had been peeled off. "We always talk about life. We talk about the parts that matter," I said. Her mouth tightened for a second. She let it go, but not really. That weekend, we had a backyard gathering at her friend Marissa's place. Marissa loved to collect people the way some folks collect antiques. She'd hug Hannah too long, hug me too quick, and then act like she'd arranged the entire evening for our benefit. I almost canceled. I didn't feel like being watched or pretending not to be watched, but I went anyway, not to play nice, to see what Hannah did when there were witnesses. The yard was strung with warm lights. A small group circled the grill holding craft beers and plastic cups. The playlist was curated on purpose, every song a little too proud of itself. Conversation floated from work gossip to vacation plans to jokes that weren't funny the second time. A guy I barely knew, one of Marissa's rotating crowd, lifted his cup toward me and said, "So, Daniel, you finally got that promotion of foreman? Huh? Look at you, Mr. Authority." "It's a title," I said evenly. "Authority is when people listen." He laughed, not sure if I was joking. Hannah rolled her eyes in that cute way she used to do. She turned to the group and said with a grin, "Don't get him started. He'll lecture you on doing things right." Her eyes flicked to me as she said it, like she was checking whether the line landed. I set my drink down. The circle didn't notice yet. They were still smiling, still waiting for the banter. I looked at Hannah and asked, calm and clear, "You want to try that line again?" She blinked, then laughed too fast. "I'm kidding. Relax. Don't do it," I said. "Don't do what?" "Don't make me the punchline, so you can get points in a group." Silence dropped in a slow ripple. Someone turned the music up 2 notches. Marissa suddenly found a reason to ask if anyone needed more ice. Hannah's smile faltered, then reset. "Everyone's so serious," she said with a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm serious," I told her, "and I'm calm. So hear me." I turned slightly so the group could see I wasn't trying to humiliate her. "New rule. We don't critique each other in public. At all. If you want something from me, you say it straight at home." Marissa blinked between us. "You two okay?" "We're fine," I said. "We're improving our settings." Hannah didn't speak. Her face was working through options, the charm, the joke, the soft turn. None of them fit the moment. Not with my tone flat and my posture steady. We left early. The drive home was quiet at first, the kind of quiet that builds pressure instead of peace. Hannah stared out the window, arms folded, jaw tight. "You embarrassed me," she said finally. "No," I replied. "I stopped you from doing it to me. You made a scene. I made a boundary. If that feels like a scene to you, that's your problem." She went quiet again, looking for a handle. Hannah has always been good at finding the angle that shifts a situation back into her favor. It was one of the things I used to admire, her quickness, her social fluency. Now I watched it like a mechanic watching a machine he no longer trusts. "I was planning a weekend at the lake," she said after another minute. "I booked a cabin. It was supposed to be a surprise." She pulled up the reservation on her phone and held it in front of me like a prize. "You wanted to cancel?" she asked, voice soft. "Is that the next rule?" "Do what you want with your calendar," I said. "About my own plans." Her breath came out sharp, humorless. "You're not special because you're difficult." "I'm not difficult," I said. "I'm done cooperating with something that isn't real." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you already know what's changed," I said. "You just want me to say it first." She stared at me like she might swing for another lever, but none came. That week, I moved quietly through the practical steps Owen had given me. I took my grandfather's watch, my important documents, a few tools I wouldn't replace easily, and put them into a small storage unit under my business name. I forwarded my mail to a box downtown. I lined up a short-term lease for a simple place on the west side. No speeches, no boxes stacked in the hallway, no warning flags. Hannah noticed I was home less. She noticed I kept my answers broad. She noticed I wasn't taking the bait when she went sweet or sharp. She tried sweet first. One night, she cooked my favorite meal and set the table like it was a holiday. "I thought we could have a good night," she said softly. "We're having dinner," I said. "That's fine." She tried sharp some other nights. "So you just don't talk now?" she snapped while loading the dishwasher. "You think silence makes you noble?" "I think silence keeps me from wasting time on arguments that go nowhere," I said. She stared like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. In the mornings, I still met Rachel. The coffee shop briefings stopped being only briefings. We started cooking together at her place some nights, taking slow walks after dinner, sitting on her patio without needing to fill every second with words. With Rachel, I didn't brace. I didn't calibrate my tone. I didn't feel like I was scanning for traps. It wasn't a grand romance scene. It was simpler than that. It was a room where my shoulders stopped sitting up near my ears. One Tuesday, as I pulled into my driveway, my old neighbor Mr. Ellison tipped his cap from his lawn. Retired, quiet, protective of the block. He knew every car that belonged there. He was here again, he said low. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. When? Noon, he answered. White sedan. Out-of-state plates. Same clean-cut guy. Walked up your steps like it was his. Did you get a plate? I asked. He nodded and held up his phone. Not to meddle, just to be useful. Thank you, I said, and meant it. Inside the house, Hannah was on a call. Her voice was low, quick, and she ended it too fast when she saw me. You're early, she said. Trying a new thing, I replied. You free to talk? She hesitated half a beat. Sure. I didn't circle. I didn't warm up. I didn't raise my voice. What are you doing at noon these days? I asked. Her eyes widened slightly. What is this? Answer the question. I run errands. I work out. Sometimes I nap, she said, chin lifting. Good, I said. Then you won't mind me being around more. Why would you be around more? Because it's my house, I said. And because I can. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She licked her lips like someone buying time. That night, Owen called. Your packet's ready, he said. You can sign tomorrow. We serve Monday. Do it, I said. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. A decision made long before the paperwork caught up. Rachel texted right after. Mine is ready too. We met in Owen's office before lunch the next day. She looked composed the way people look when they've already grieved enough to go numb. We signed in silence. Owen watched us like a doctor watching vitals, making sure we weren't shaking. When we finished, he nodded once. You understand what happens next. No speeches. No bargaining sessions. Just movement. We're not flinching, I said. Rachel squeezed my hand once and let go. We drove back to our separate houses in separate cars. When I walked into mine, Hannah was in the living room with her laptop open, acting like a normal afternoon. You're home early, she said. I am, I answered. I'm packing some things today. She gave a short laugh that didn't sound amused. Packing for what? Your guest room protest turning into a vacation. Her laugh faded when I didn't answer. Leaving where? She asked. And for the first time her voice carried something close to fear. You'll find the details on the counter, I said. She stood up fast. You can't just. I can, I said. And I am. Her face worked through every script she owned. Anger, hurt, confusion, the soft tone that asked for dialogue while dragging time. She tried the last one first. We should talk like adults, she said, voice rising. I've been talking like an adult for months, I said. You like the sound of it. You didn't like the content. That's not fair, she snapped. You're overreacting. If you've done something to upset you, tell me, she said quickly, switching directions. Instead of playing games. You've done plenty, I said. None of it felt like a game to me. Her eyes flashed. You don't even have proof. I have enough to decide, I answered. I'm not a courtroom. She reached for another lever, voice sharpening. What will people think? They'll think we grew apart, I said. And they'll be right. I carried boxes to the truck. Clothes, tools, photo albums I cared about. I left the furniture, left the TV, left everything that wasn't part of my next life. I taped a manila envelope to the fridge with her name on it. Inside was her copy of the packet, filed and dated. A short note in my handwriting. The papers are filed. Keys on the hook. Don't call. When I walked out with the last box, she stood in the hallway like a door that wanted to argue with gravity. You're making a mistake, she said. No, I told her. I'm correcting one. You'll regret this, she said, small and sharp. I don't do regret, I replied. I do accountability. I shut the front door behind me and didn't look back. Rachel was waiting at her place when I pulled up. She stepped out with a box of her own, tired but steady, and slid into the bed of my truck like this was the cleanest decision either of us had made in a long time. You ready? She asked. For clean air, I said. Yeah. We moved into the rental we'd lined up. No announcements, no dramatic messages, no feeding the noise. Boxes and quiet, side by side. That night, surrounded by half-open cartons and a pizza we barely touched, Rachel leaned into my shoulder. You okay? She asked. I breathed in the simple silence of a room that didn't hold old lies. I'm more than okay, I said. I'm free. She smirked faintly. Don't cheapen it with big words. Just tell me you're sleeping. I'm sleeping, I said. And for the first time in weeks, I knew it was true. The calls started the next morning. Hannah first, then her sister, Marissa. My phone lit up, and I let it ring. I didn't open the voicemails. I already knew the script. Come back, explain, soften the edges so everyone else could breathe. Rachel's phone buzzed too. Gavin sent long strings of messages. She turned her screen down and said, We don't owe them a show. No, I said, we owe ourselves a finish. I went to work, kept my tone even, and told Luis I'd be in and out for a while. He didn't ask why. You safe? He said. I'm steady. Then I'm good. Owen served papers on Monday. Legal language doesn't care about tears. It just draws lines. The house went on the market within 2 weeks. I expected a fight because Hannah loved that place like it proved our life, but she didn't fight hard. Offers came fast. We closed. The proceeds hit the joint account, and the split happened per the plan. She called during the transfer. I let it ring. One afternoon, I went back to meet the realtor and grab a tool I'd missed. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and stage quiet. Pillows were angled. Lamps shifted. Everything arranged to look calm. The blue throw blanket was gone. Seeing that empty spot didn't hurt the way I thought it might. It only confirmed the season was over. As I loaded the tool into my truck, Hannah pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, eyes sharp. You're really doing this? She asked. I really did it. You won't even listen to me. One conversation, I said. That's all I had left. She moved closer. Who is she? You don't get that answer. You get logistics. Her jaw tightened. Did you ever love me? Enough to be honest, I said. Enough to walk when respect stopped. She blinked, then grabbed for another line. People are going to talk. They already did. Now they'll stop. You're cruel. No, I'm clear. I handed the extra key to the realtor and said, quiet and final, next time you want 2 lives, don't use someone else's house for the second one. Then I left. A month later, Rachel and I drove 2 hours west to see the place she'd found. Small house, yard, workshop with good light. Nothing fancy, just workable. We walked the property. The fence leaned, the grass needed mowing, the shop smelled like old wood and possibility. You like it, she said. I like the quiet. And the shop. She smiled. You had me at quiet. We bought it without ceremony. No posts, no announcements. Just signatures and a move into something we chose on purpose. The first morning there, I brewed coffee in a kitchen with no old echoes and looked out a yard that needed real work. Rachel leaned into my shoulder. You're smiling. I'm not lying to myself anymore. Life stayed simple. I took jobs with a crew that didn't know my history. Rachel worked remote and ran empty streets. We made friends the adult way. Neighbors needing a fence fixed, hardware store talks, small invites with no tests attached. Sometimes the past came up softly. Do you think they're happy? She asked once. I think they're busy with damage control. I said, happiness doesn't sound like that. A year later, Luis visited the workshop, checked my beams, and grunted approval. You landed. I built a runway. That evening, I checked my phone out of habit. Nothing from the past. Just a big reminder and a text from Mr. Ellison back on the old block. Street is quieter. I wrote back that I was well, then set the phone down. People call what I did cold. They think leaving without a scene means you didn't feel enough. What they miss is that sometimes a clean decision is the only kindness left. I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left because staying would have punished me. Some lessons don't need grand sermons. They need a line drawn, a door shut, and a man who keeps walking. I left the keys on the hook, and I took my self-respect with me. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.